Good morning. Happy Wednesday. One of my favorite things in life is to be right. So, the U.S. has secured a ceasefire with Iran, premised on negotiating over Iran's, not the U.S.'s, Iran's 10-point peace plan. That is an incredibly powerful position for Iran to be in. They're negotiating essentially on the limits of those 10 points. Not the points the U.S. raised, but Iran's points. And you're going to say, why should I listen to you, John? That's a good question. Why should you listen to me? I'm some random idiot with a beard and a car, but I am a first-year family law attorney. And politics and the practice of law aren't the same song, but they do have a very similar tune. There's a lot of settlement negotiation in the law. I've said this 100 times if I've said it once. Most cases settle. The vast majority of cases settle. At least if there are attorneys on both sides. I would say about 98% of cases settle. About 98. I take very few cases to trial in any field of law that I practice, which I know is just family law, but every criminal case that I have worked on has settled. Every, not every probate case. Most probate cases have ended up without going to trial. Every civil case that I've worked on has settled. Every criminal case. I mean, what else? Family law, I've done several trials. I've probably done about 10 trials total, but it's generally speaking hard to settle a DV case because there's so many important factors involved. I guess I haven't settled all of my civil cases because I've done civil harassment trials, which are technically civil. So, but my point is that I do a lot of settlements. I do a lot of settlement negotiations. And for Iran to get it to be where the conditions that are being settled are the conditions that Iran put on the table, those are the ones that we're negotiating. That is an incredibly powerful position to be in. It's not a question of, at this point, assuming negotiations go through, assuming Israel isn't able to derail it. The question isn't going to be whether or not Iran's going to win. The question is, how much are they going to win? So it's incredibly powerful. And even in the terms of the ceasefire show Iran's dominance in this particular conflict, because the only change to the current conditions in the Strait of Hormuz, I guess there's technically two, is number one, Oman gets to charge tolls as well as Iran. And number two, the U.S., instead of telling ships to run the tolls, is basically telling the ships, no, you're going to have to pay the tolls. So that's the U.S. agreeing that Iran has the, maybe not right would not be the right word, but Iran has the ability, the power, the authority, the de facto, if not de jure, ability to charge tolls. That's a win. Iran is won. The only question now that remains to be seen is, will this ceasefire last? And if it does last, and if negotiations do go through, the only question at that point will be, how much did Iran win? Personally, I would love to see the U.S. close the bases in the Middle East. They've been a liability, not an asset. They've cost us billions, if not trillions of dollars over the last, 70-ish years. Close them. Get our troops out of there. Stop spending money on bases that are just going to get bombed to shit the next time the U.S. and Iran come to loggerheads, or the next time Israel and Iran come to loggerheads. I would love to see that happen. I think that's a win-win. That's a win for the U.S., maybe not for Trump politically, but that's a win for the U.S. taxpayer. It's a win for Iran. Both sides benefit. Neither side really loses, except, Trump's going to lose a lot of face. But, does he have any face left to lose? Any dreams of a third term, I think, are shot to shit. He's absolutely incompetent. And I say incompetent, and I mean incompetent. I don't mean crazy. I know a lot of people want to say he's crazy, but these people aren't psychologists. And, again, one of the things that I have to do as an attorney, working, like if I'm going to draft a will for someone, or draft a trust for someone, or if somebody comes in wanting a conservatorship for their spouse or their mom or whatever, one of the things that I have to do ethically as an attorney, it's my job, is I have to meet with the person and determine whether or not they are competent. And by competent, I mean legally competent. And that would exclude, legally competent means the ability to engage in contracts, the ability to care for yourself, etc. It's slightly different in the conservatorship context versus the ability to draft a will context, but it's similar. So part of my job is to sit down with that person and to make a determination on whether or not they are competent enough to draft a will, or whether they are not competent enough to require a conservatorship. And that's before I get a doctor involved. If I think that they're competent, if everything shows me they're competent, then I'm not going to prepare and file a request for conservatorship. It's only if I think that they're incompetent, i.e., legally incompetent, that's the point where I get a doctor involved for a conservatorship. For a will, I don't need a doctor involved. If I think they're not competent, I'm sorry, I'm not going to draft your will. It would only cause a will contest later, and the will wouldn't hold up. So why would I draft a will? Why would I allow my client to be placed in that position so that I can make, $1,000 or $2,000 to draft up a will or a trust? Why would I do that? I wouldn't. It would potentially expose me to a malpractice lawsuit or to sanctions from the bar. So when I say that Trump is incompetent, he's incompetent at his job as president. He hasn't shown any competence. He's probably completely competent to manage a real estate empire. Sure. But to run a country, he's not competent. He's not crazy. He's not insane. Everything he's doing, there's a rational basis behind it. It's not a competent basis. He's not doing the right thing, but he's doing a rational thing. Just like when my 3-year-old throws a tantrum wanting to get more ice cream. It's a rational thing. He's not achieving it competently. I'm not going to cave in just because he's throwing a tantrum to get more ice cream. But he's rational. He wants ice cream, and he's doing this thing in order to accomplish a goal. That's what Trump was doing. Trump's crazy-ass ultimatums, it was rational. He had an end goal in mind, what he wanted. He wanted the hostilities to stop. And so he was doing something that was incompetent but rational to try to achieve it. Trump's not crazy. He's not competent as a president. He's not qualified to be a president. He's shown that time and time again. And one of the things that I always criticized back when I voted for Trump, I always criticized people who were against Trump, like back in 2016. They're like, oh, Trump likes to fire people, and that shows that he makes bad hiring choices. And having been a manager and a director of operations and yada yada yada, I've made a lot of hiring decisions. I've hired a lot of people, and I've fired a lot of people because sometimes people come in, their CV looks great, they do a good interview, you call their prior employers, and their prior employers say that they'd hire this person again, yada yada, and then you hire them, and like, you're holy shit, you're not capable of doing this job, or you're insubordinate, or you don't show up for work, or whatever. So just the fact that he fired someone didn't make me pause. But then his hiring choices did give me pause in 2017 when he set up his cabinet, etc. Hiring John Bolton. I'm like, what the like, you're the peace president and you're hiring like one of the biggest neocons, one of the biggest pro-war advocates, who apparently was just shitting all over Trump for this last war, this last 40-day-ish war on Iran. Like, you knew that they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz. What were you thinking? Should have seen it coming. The rabid anti-Trumpers didn't see it coming, but they were right. They were right just through circumstance. There were some sane anti-Trump people who I should have listened to back in 2016. Although, 2016, that presidency, he only had two real issues as far as I'm aware of that I didn't like. The first one was the government shutdown in like March of 2020-ish. No. Yeah, it was like March of 2020. Didn't COVID start in like January of 2020? Which the 2 weeks to slow the spread that he was pushing for gave all the governors cover to do shutdowns. And I don't care if you're like, COVID, it's a deadly disease. It apparently isn't a deadly disease because it's endemic now. It goes around and around and around. And still, it pretty much kills really elderly people and people who are otherwise compromised. Like the flu. I'm not denying that COVID exists. Oh, you're a COVIDer. I'm not denying it exists. I'm not denying that it kills people. I'm saying that it's not the disease didn't warrant the response. That's my controversial position. It didn't warrant the response. And your completely sane and rational position could be that it did warrant the response. We place different values on things. It's a value judgment. We can have different ones and both be sane, competent people. But that was the first mistake that I thought he made that I really vehemently opposed. And the second thing that, again, I opposed was the fact that he didn't immediately pardon all the people who marched on Washington at his request. Peacefully march. He said peacefully. Peacefully go down there. And they predominantly went peacefully down there. We don't know how many FBI agitators were in there because the FBI won't say to a congressional oversight committee because our democracy is broken. It's not a democracy, John. It's a representative democracy. It's a republic. I get it. It's a republic, but your vote doesn't matter. Still all I'm saying. Your vote doesn't matter. You're not going to vote this away. And the situation is just going to get worse. But anyway, back to Iran. So it's a huge win for Iran. The only question is, at this point, will the U.S. negotiate? And if they do, how much is Iran going to win? So, everybody who thought that the U.S. was going to kick ass and take names, I called it from the beginning. I called it. We don't. There's no win condition. There was a New York Times article. Come out yesterday or today? Early this morning. I don't know. Basically detailing how all of this started, and it was a decapitation effort. It was a regime change effort. It was sold by, according to New York, was it the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal? God, I read stuff when I'm half awake. I think it was the Times. Anyway, I'm not saying that they're a credible source. I'm not endorsing their journalistic capabilities. They are still, they have an agenda in this. I don't know what their agenda is. Probably to set up J.D. Vance as the next Republican nominee. He was the compromise this time with the powers that be. Last time it was, who was the vice president under Trump's first term? That dude. Anyway, probably to set up J.D. Vance, to give distance between him and Trump so that he remains a viable candidate. I don't think he'll win. I haven't thought he'll win. I don't think he'll win. I applaud his position if he had it to be against going to war in Iran. Who didn't see this coming? I don't know. Apparently not Trump. But Trump was sold this by Israel. Netanyahu and his chief of Mossad, Ben-Gvir or something like that. I don't remember the name. I'm terrible with names. And we knew that, the decapitation strike that started off, and then the expectation from Trump that the decapitation strike would end it, just like Venezuela. And then it morphed into all these other things. We're protecting the Iranian people. We're going after their ability to enrich uranium. We're going after their ability to produce ballistic missiles, all these other things, none of which we've done. We didn't protect the Iranian people. We blew up girls' schools and hospitals and police stations and attacked all sorts of their infrastructure, their civilian infrastructure. So we didn't protect the people. We didn't do anything for the nukes. That debacle in Ifshan, however you say it, to secure the uranium, that was a debacle. That didn't do anything. The regime is stronger than it ever was. It's got a much tighter control over the Iranian people. Our bombing efforts against the civilians have actually increased their loyalty to the government. Congratulations. So we accomplished nothing of what we set out to do. And yet here we are negotiating peace terms on Iran's conditions for peace. Oh, and fun fact, we're still going to see an oil shock. It takes a while. I told you, I'm calling this. If I'm wrong, congratulations if I'm wrong. But I told you it takes about, 50, 60 days or so to get from the Middle East to California. Probably takes about the same time for them to get to the Middle East to the East Coast. And the oil shock is probably coming about mid-month, maybe end of the month, somewhere in there. Probably before May, we are going to see huge fucking spikes in prices. And it's already hit, the oil shock already hit Asia. They've had huge issues in Asia. And a lot of the goods that we import, we are a nation of imports. Oh, we're self-sufficient on petroleum products. Are we really? But remember, all of our oil producers, they can sell overseas, and if they can get a higher price selling it overseas, guess where it's going to go? It's not going to go into your local gas station. It's going to go overseas. You're going to pay higher prices despite us being oil self-sufficient, if we are, in fact. But everything, just about everything you buy in the store is produced in Asia. Most things are produced in Asia, and guess what's getting a severe shock? Asia. We used to be a net exporter of food. Now we're a net importer of food. Not only does oil have a huge impact on the price of food, because you got to use oil and oil related products to plant, to harvest, to transport the raw goods to wherever it gets packaged up, processed, which that requires oil too. And then it needs to get shipped. That requires oil to the U.S., where it then gets moved to a distribution center, which requires oil, and then it gets shipped out across the country, which requires oil. Not only does it require a metric F ton of oil to get all this stuff from seed to grocery store, but it also requires fertilizer. And there's going to be a huge impact on the cost of fertilizer, because I don't remember if it was 20 or 40%, but a huge chunk of the world's fertilizer came from the Middle East. And guess what time of year it is? It's spring. Guess what you plant? About now. At least in the northern hemisphere. Obviously, it's fall in the southern hemisphere. But you get my point. You get my point. It's going to get worse. It's still going to get worse. Even if, I hope and I pray that we actually get a long-term peace treaty with Iran. I don't like to see Americans fight and die in the Middle East for Israel's wars. I don't like to see that. And by the way, for everybody who's like, actually the U.S. and Iran have been at war for years. Really? Have we? How are we abusing the English language this bad? It's emotional violence. Domestic violence includes anything that disturbs the peace of the other party, at least in California. How is that violence? I don't know. Violence used to have a meaning. War used to have a meaning. Iran funds the proxies that fight U.S. troops in the Middle East. Well, first of all, what are U.S. troops doing in the Middle East? They're not minding their own business. They're in the Middle East. The U.S. is on the other side of the globe. They are half a world away from where they're supposed to be. So, it's not like we're completely innocent over here. We're meddling in that area. Probably at Israel's request. Probably. But them funding groups, their terrorists are our freedom fighters. Our freedom fighters are their terrorists. But them funding those groups is fundamentally no different than the U.S. funding Ukraine. Does that mean the U.S. is at war with Russia? No. Would that justify Russia lobbing some nukes at the U.S.? No. The argument's stupid, and there is still no interest, no cognizable interest of the U.S. to be in the Middle East. Get the fuck out. No troops in the Middle East. No troops getting attacked in the Middle East. Math. Super simple. I don't remember where I was going. Oh yeah, but I hope this peace treaty lasts, or the ceasefire turns into a peace treaty which lasts. I hope the U.S. gets out of the Middle East. I hope Trump has learned his lesson and doesn't listen to Netanyahu anymore, doesn't rely. We need to stop relying on Israeli intelligence. We really do. Israeli intelligence said that if we decapitated the Iranian regime, that the government would collapse. It literally got stronger. We turned the Ayatollah into a martyr. Who could have seen this coming? We need to stop relying. And by the way, Israel is still attacking Hezbollah. They're attacking Lebanon. And the only people fighting back in Lebanon are Hezbollah. So, and if the Russian war of aggression into Ukraine is bad, then why isn't the Israeli war of aggression into Lebanon bad? It's funny how people go into pretzels to defend Israel and not apply the same logic to Russia. But anyway, Israel's trying to do their best to nuke the deal. They're going to try to continue. They're going to continue attacking into Lebanon, hoping to prompt an Iranian response. Hopefully Trump understands this. Hopefully gets rid of the spineless people who aren't willing to tell him what's up, and decides to listen to rational, competent people. And he forces Israel to stop their little wars of aggression. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.